Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another fine Sunday of Alive at the Waterhole session on a fine Sunday today. Myself, Kenneth Gamble. I'll be your presenter for this session. Starting off here today at Tembe Elephant Park. Amazing to see how the bush is changing quite rapidly and quickly as we head into autumn here in the southern hemisphere. Joined by a few impala. Quite a windy day at Tembe. Just a reminder, as always, the show is live and interactive, so please feel free to pass through your questions and comments. It's always wonderful to answer them or even open up some discussions regarding what we're seeing here at the waterhole. It's also always nice for myself to be back. Last weekend I was away on a bit of my own safari. Well, the action is waiting for us at Safari Hook. We're going to leave these very peaceful impala and head over that way. Oh, that's fantastic. A nice large herd of zebra coming down for a midday drink, nearly midday. I'm sure it's quite warm at the moment in Etosha. Admittedly so, it's still looking a little bit more greener there. You can see the vegetation is slowly starting to turn, but it actually looks quite vibrant and lush at the moment here. And the zebras look quite happy. A few young animals intermingling with the herd there. LEPR, good to have you on the show. It is nice to be back. I was busy exploring the Kruger National Park last weekend, hence my absence, but it's always nice to spend a Sunday session with everyone. Some very chirpy birds in the background here. At one point I'm pretty sure I heard a desert cisticola, but quite a few birds singing their hearts out. I'm not entirely sure what's making that bird call at the moment. It could maybe be a pipit or a wagtail, but yeah, the birds in the Etosha region are a bit more different to what I'm normally used to here in the Kruger region, so sometimes I'm a bit rusty on those bird calls. Always very entertaining watching how the zebras interact with one another. They can be quite boisterous and rough. I don't know if to the left there, they seem to all be grazing in one spot. Could be that there could be some supplemental feeding, especially after the fires that occurred in Etosha. Some of the lodges might be just providing some supplements to support the animals. But they do look quite spread out now. I think they are just actually grazing on tender grass shoots coming out there. Ethan, you'd like to know what animal preys on zebras? Are they too big to be hunted? Not in the slightest. So zebras are primarily hunted by lions. Lions really do enjoy hunting zebras amongst other herbivores, but zebras are quite a good target for them. It's a large animal, can feed a number of them. So yeah, the lions tend to hunt zebras quite heavily, and they can have quite a detrimental effect on the population if the habitat's not in the zebra's favor. Leopards will take maybe a younger animal. I don't think it's very normal to see a adult zebra succumbing to a leopard, and then of course cheetahs and wild dogs cannot hunt zebras. Maybe a young foal, but even then the zebras are quite effective at defending themselves. It truly is lions that are their greatest enemy. And that's why it's also so important in a stable ecosystem. For example, Kruger or even Etosha here, a large zebra population is indicative that there probably is also a balanced but also decent lion population. If you start to see very little zebras in the area, it's indicative of a few issues in the habitat. Might be a lot of bush encroachment, so the zebras are overly hunted by lions because they can't escape or see the lions coming, because they are in itself very much open grassland or open savanna animals. They don't do well in overgrown areas. Ian, you're asking what are controlled fires and why do they happen? So Ian, what a lot of reserves let me rewind it. If we look at the savanna ecosystem throughout time, it has co-evolved with mankind for thousands of years, if not longer. And a part of this was hunter-gatherers or herders, etc., that would move around with their grazing animals. They would often set the grasslands or the savanna on fire to induce grass growth, because a lot of grasses, once they get to a certain length, they're no longer palatable, and they tend to, one speaks of moribund, but it's new grass can't really grow through it. It starts to choke up, and it's in general it just becomes a dead ecosystem. So fire was quite a unique thing that mankind learned how to harness or use, and over thousands of years the ecosystem and mankind, so I say, kind of co-evolved in that way, and it became quite normal. And nowadays one can see the effects of areas that are no longer burnt. The grass species become unpalatable for herbivores. So it's a very integral part of the ecosystem and part of nutrient cycling. Obviously all that grass burning cycles nutrients back into the system. So it's very much part of the system. Often people see fires in the savannah and they think the worst and it's terrible, but it's actually a very normal part of the system and it must take place. Where it no longer takes place, the ecosystem tends to go a bit off kilter. But on that note, so obviously in nature reserves where there's very little mankind influence, fires don't happen too often except in natural circumstances, but reserve management will then burn certain blocks and they'll rotate it. Obviously you don't want everything being burnt at once, then there'll be no food for the animals, but if one can rotate it in a way that is an incredibly important management tool that must be used, and it revitalizes the bushveld considerably. Sorry, I know that was a long-winded one, but it's an incredibly interesting topic, and one of the things I love about nature is the intricacies that are often poorly understood. Very interesting to see how these zebras are, it looks like they're licking or chewing a bit on the termite mound. They could be after minerals and supplements. Obviously the termites have dredged up from underneath the soil, and it's an important supplement for their diet. It seems like most of the herd is slowly but surely moving out. Well, as these zebras continue on their Sunday stroll, we're going to head over to Tau and see what's waiting for us there. Oh, it's looking very beautiful here at Tau. I imagine they've had some more rains in the area. Everything looks very much vibrant and alive. Nice to see a large impala herd like this feeding, and I think it's a combination of grazing and browsing. Obviously browsing on small broadleaf plants that are sprouting and soft and tender shoots. But quite a beautiful sight. It is the impala is such a, I think, often underrated but beautiful antelope, and an incredibly good generalist or survivor. They are found throughout Africa, and yeah, I think that's pretty much a definition of success. You will never really struggle to find an impala somewhere. It is interesting to note that often people think elephants are the biggest issues in ecosystems with the lack of trees, etc. But impalas can also be quite detrimental in high numbers. They essentially stop young trees from coming through. They browse them or feed on them before the trees have had a chance to really get to a height where they can start growing. So a bit of a, I wouldn't say unsung hero, but an unseen force that can also be quite detrimental in ecosystems if not carefully managed or balanced. I'm sure a lot of these rams are getting more and more boisterous. As autumn starts to roll around, they'll be getting ready for the rut, and will be fighting each other shortly for the rights to breed and to have their herd of females. Two very impressive rams there in the middle. The one at the back is very pretty. He's quite a beautiful individual. Well, we're going to leave our peaceful impalas and head over to Tembe. Ooh, we've got some giraffes. We don't often see the giraffes here at Tembe. Quite a pale looking female there. You can see how she compares to the large bull next to her. Obviously a younger cow. The bull is quite mature. For a second I wanted to double check myself, but it is definitely a large bull. We can tell if we look at these ossicones, and they are bald on top. The females have hair on the top of theirs because they don't use them for fighting. So we've also got a few woolly neck stalks there. Very windy day today in Tembe. It looks like the stalks are even trying to keep out of the strong gust of wind. I think the giraffes are also a bit more cautious here. There's always lion activity in the vicinity of this waterhole at Tembe, so more than likely why they're on edge. You can see this old bull has a bit of a growth or something on his knee. Doesn't seem to be hindering him too much. They are of course wild animals. These things do occur from time to time, but he seems to be doing okay. I do think I know for a fact the tick load in the Tembe region is a bit rough. The few times I've been there, but makes sense, it is very thick vegetation. I do think the giraffes take a little bit of a beating from ticks and parasites. Yeah, okay, we can see a bit better now. Yeah, it does appear to be a bit of a growth. That being said, I didn't see him walking with too much discomfort, but yeah, I'm sure it's not comfortable or maybe hinders him ever so slightly. Can be caused by a number of factors. Cut that maybe got a bit infected, or a stick or an injury, etc. But he seems to be walking okay. And yeah, at the end of the day, they are very tough animals. I'm sure he will continue to survive. Ingrid, you're asking why would tick loads be high in Tembe compared to other areas? A number of factors. So Tembe is quite a sand forest, well, it's a unique type of habitat referred to as sand forest. So you can imagine in these areas, and this relates back to our topic from earlier of controlled burns or fires, but there is fires that take place in Tembe, but not throughout the reserve, more the open area. So the giraffes will obviously, the animals themselves will pick up a lot of ticks in the sand forest areas. I'm also just speaking out of personal experience, having been to Tembe a few times. It's not hard to find a tick crawling on you if you go to one of the picnic sites, or there's quite a few ticks. But that can be one reason. Burns not taking place. When controlled burns or veld fires take place, they reduce the tick load quite heavily. Tembe is surrounded by rural communities, so there'll be cattle in the area, cattle and goats, so you already have quite a tick load in the area. And yeah, once again, I think going back to the vegetation, I think it just favors, especially, well, you can also look in the sand forest, it's for the animals to move through, they generally move on very well trodden game paths, and that's where ticks will also accumulate, because it's not easy for them to move through the thick forested habitats. Of course, the elephants are the main ecosystem engineers in that way that open up these paths. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world for animals. They are a lot more tougher or resilient against tick-borne diseases compared to us as humans. And even then, every tick that bites you will not give you tick bite fever. It was an unpleasant illness. We can see oxpeckers, so that's always a good sign. And speaking maybe a bit closer to home, the area I stay, our giraffes generally have a bit more, or I've noticed they tend to have a fair number of ticks on them, and it's also because we can't really conduct controlled burns due to houses on the property, etc. It can be a bit detrimental. So.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
Step into the exciting world of the original science. Next September, Master Tracker Renus Mhlongo and Wild Earth's Steve Falconbridge lead a spectacular safari through the Kruger, where you'll learn to identify tracks and then trail iconic big game on foot. Days are spent immersed in the field, evenings around the fire sharing stories, from the hair-raising to the hilarious. This is the ultimate wild immersion for the nature connoisseur.
My full name is Mpho Tikani. I grew up in Soweto. My first animal that I filmed said to dog. Okay, no, wait. My first animal that I filmed, I think it was an impala. Best sighting ever, I would say it was actually this year, 2024. But it was at this Cedric when we had Mulwati and TP on a warthog kill. I think we have to cut it.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
Dolores, you'd like to know if animals can get growths, like the giraffe had, does it mean they can get cancer? So it's important to remember any living animal can get cancer, including giraffes, etc. Any animal with dividing cells can develop tumors. That's just the unfortunate fact of life and the way the biology works. But it's also important to remember not every growth is cancerous. Sometimes it can be benign lumps, infections, abscesses or skin conditions. So that's what I was saying, that could have maybe been an infected tick bite, an injury from a stick or something, and that's just how it's healed. Because you could also see in that way that giraffe is not limping, he's still walking quite strongly from what I could tell. But yeah, cancer does occur in wildlife. We probably see it not too often, because generally cancer occurs in animals quite later in their lives, or once they've gotten quite old, and animals don't live to ripe old ages often in the wild. It's more in captivity that it takes place. So generally something that hampers them will result in predation taking place, and it's not always too notable. There is a type of illness, you see it sometimes in the Kruger on giraffes. I'm drawing a blank on the specific name, but it gives them a lot of growths and little, it looks like little tumours and growths, and it looks quite strange. I think I would almost liken it to leprosy in a way, but I must try to find the name. But anyway, that is something that occurs, but once again, it's not cancerous, even though it maybe does look like it. Oh, I see our elephant moved quite rapidly there. It was nearly just a pit stop. Oh, it's amazing to see how there's rain now at Tau Waterhole. No wonder everything is looking so lush and green. It's because it actually is currently raining. But wow, what a sighting, seeing this elephant and waterbuck moving in the mist or the downpour. It looks quite, the word I would use is epic. Quite a cool scene to see. Also happy that there's a bit of rain falling. It's always a good thing before the onset of the dry season. I'm sure this elephant is enjoying the nice cooling downpour. Good way to cool off and so rinse off a bit of the mud, etc. Although I don't think that it bothers the elephants in the slightest. I think I would be a terrible elephant because I hate being covered in dirt and dust and mud, etc. You can also see there's a common moorhen walking around there. You often see them here at Tau. And this elephant looks very content, quite happy with life at the moment on this peaceful Sunday. It does appear like it is raining very convincingly in the area. You can see all the way up to the hills on the horizon that it's quite a substantial amount of rain falling, or enough to essentially distort the view of the mountains back there. But also quite a nice gentle downpour, not too hard, so just what the plants need. Often when it rains quite hard, it can lead to quite a bit of erosion, which is never a good thing. It just washes plants away and nutrients. We have another little springbok that's come to visit. Quite quiet after all the zebras have left here at Safari Hook. I'm sure there probably is a few more springbok to the right of this one. It would be strange to have one like this on its own. It also looks like a female, so it's normally more the rams that you will see that are on their own. I think here's another one grazing into view. Yeah, there we go. Apologies for that, everyone. We just lost a bit of comms there. Popped on back to Tembe. At least we've got our stars of the show, and they've made an appearance. Two for now. I'm sure there's many more lurking. I think there's another one. Yeah, there's a couple more elephants to the top right hand side there. You can see them flapping their ears. It would not be a normal day if we did not see elephants at Tembe Elephant Park. Then we would know there's something amiss in the world. Very interesting to note, even though the wind is blowing, it is clearly still quite a hot day. The fact that the elephants are bunched off into the shade or resting and taking their afternoon siesta is quite indicative that the sun is still beating down in this part of South Africa. But it's also a very humid, warm part of or tropical is maybe the word I would use, but it gets quite warm there. Anyway, we're going to leave these bull elephants to do their thing. We're going to pop on over to Serondela for a bit. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's becoming that time of year where we see the elephants come for their regular mud baths. A few very alert cows strolling in. You can see how they're picking their heads up and smelling. I don't know what they're smelling specifically. Oh, there's a tiny little baby that is so precious. Still very young, that animal. Quite a small little herd coming in. I can see the looks like two younger bull elephants. And the one on the right seems to be following the female, so this might cause a bit of commotion. And they've already had their mud baths for the day. I think he's decided to go annoy the other bull elephant. Interesting to note the height difference on them. And the cows don't seem too concerned with their presence, they're just doing their own thing. I'm sure these two younger bulls are going to move off and carry on with their afternoon. They'll probably also go find a place to rest up for the next couple of hours. It's quite a warm day in the low veld at the moment. Seems like there's another elephant about to come out of the brush. There we go. I think it's quite a few big animals coming now. Very big bull at the back there. You can see the cows are not in the mood for any of this, especially with the youngsters. They may be a bit on edge, not in the mood for any boisterous action that may take place. But quite a sizable bull elephant that's come strolling in. I would say he is more than likely the dominant one in this circumstance. You can see he's seeing if any of the cows are on estrus. I'm not necessarily sure if he's maybe in must. It's obviously must can take place at any time of year, but to my experience, it often feels like something one comes across in the earlier part of the year. It's a bit hard to see with the camera. I do see he is streaming a bit of liquid from his temples, but that's not always a sure giveaway. Oof, the spot is just crawling with elephants. They are all over the show. Of course, a very normal phenomenon to expect at this time of day. Elephants are drawn to water as if it's a magnet. I was wondering if our hippo was still around, but I see he has vacated the area. I haven't watched the Serendela camera for quite some time. But I guess he might come back a bit later in the dry season. He's maybe somewhere else where there is water. But it is quite shocking. The water is starting to dry up quite quickly now as we head into the dry season. So only the pans that are truly capable of holding sufficient water are holding water after all the heavy rains and floods. See, our view has been interrupted ever so slightly. The elephant come for a bit of a scratch on the tree of the post where the camera is mounted. Quite a big individual as well, because normally when the cows drink from this section, you can just kind of see the top of their back, so this is quite a large bull that's come past. Tyler, you'd like to know, is it true that elephants can communicate with each other over far distances? So yep, it is definitely true. Elephants are known to communicate over several kilometers using very low frequency sounds, which are referred to as infrasound. So these are rumbles, but these type of rumbles we actually can't hear as humans. They are often too deep for us to hear clearly. But other elephants are able to detect them through the air and also through vibrations in the ground, which they can pick up with their feet or their trunk. Sometimes you'll see them putting their trunk quite convincingly on the soil surface or on the ground. And they use these long distance calls to coordinate movement or locate other family members or groups, signal reproductive status. So often a bull in must will give out these calls and stuff, and the cows will know he's in the area, he's advertising his presence. And you can also pick up on the reproductive status of cows or the breeding herders nearby. And they're also able to warn of danger, so quite interesting. so nice to actually just sit back and watch the elephants carry on with their business. But yeah, we were privy to some very close-up shots there. I think it's something we're going to be seeing more and more of as the season, or as the dry season marches on now, or starts to kick off. You can see quite a bit how the grass is drying and changing. I don't know if anyone heard that, but there was one of those deep rumbles. I caught some of it there. Jolene, you'd like to know how elephants contributors to deforestation. Now obviously the term is just a bit misleading because there's not necessarily, or the African savanna is not a forest in any way, so it's not a term that really fits. But elephants definitely change landscapes. They're often referred to as ecosystem architects or engineers, and they play a very important role. But yeah, they do push over trees, they strip the bark from trees and open up woodland. So in areas with very high elephant densities, this can start to reduce tree cover and make an area look more open. I mean, if we look around here in Serondela, there is definitely a few broken trees, etc., but we can still see quite a bit of tree cover, and this is also part of the greater Kruger region. But yeah, calling it deforestation is slightly misleading. Elephants remain natural ecosystem engineers. They're just doing what comes naturally to them. In balanced systems, their impact, it creates essentially a mosaic for other animals, or other animals that benefit from them. So it opens up areas, allows for more grass growth at the end of the day. A vast majority of your herbivores in the African bush are grazers, so having copious amounts of trees reduces grass growth, etc., and it can increase habitat diversity for other species. But once again, there is a balance. It can start to become negative at some point, but the problems usually arise when the elephant numbers are high and their movement is heavily restricted, like in fence reserves, and that impact is a lot more noticeable. So the Kruger itself is fenced, but it is a very large system, and even then, in a way, can be considered open. In the north it opens up to other national parks, and in the east it opens up to more national parks in Mozambique. So it is a very large system, but yeah, that's I would say maybe the tip of the iceberg. But at the end of the day, elephants play an incredibly crucial role in habitats, and I often say, if people ever look at habitats where elephants no longer occur, I would not necessarily consider them very healthy or in balance, because it's generally quite overgrown, poor grazing present in these areas, so they play an incredibly important role, and I think it's easy to miss the important work they do.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
Did you know that 90% of Madagascar's wildlife exists nowhere else on Earth? The Indri's haunting howl echoes through misty rainforest, a sound we will never forget. Travel east where lemurs soar through emerald canopies and coral reefs shimmer beneath turquoise seas. This isn't just a journey. It's a once-in-a-lifetime wildlife adventure I'd like to take you on. Join me, James Hendry, on this exclusive island safari.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
My full name is Emojis. Best part of my job is coming to see nature. Worst part of my job is logging. That's the worst thing ever, because you have to log amount of footage. You sit in front of that computer and yeah, you think of deleting the footage, but no, they need the footage. If I went to camel, probably a soccer player. I know some people don't believe me, but I'm very good, and I'm very fast.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
In the wild. Still very fantastic hearing the calls of the woodland kingfishers. I'm sure they are getting ready to leave. They won't be around for too much longer. Most of the birds are getting ready to leave in the southern regions or their migratory spots where they've stopped for the summer. If you're a South African bird watcher, you'll know March is a very good time to start looking for the warblers that have come here for the wet season. They start to call and get quite busy as they prepare to head back to the northern hemisphere. And the last while I've been hearing a lot of different warblers calling, so it's a very exciting time of year if you're an avid birder to start seeing the migrants before they head back. Certainly does look very idyllic just resting in the shade like the elephants are. I'd love to spend my Sunday afternoon doing the same, with a good book in the shade, watching the world go by. Anyway, I'm gonna leave our lazy pachyderms and head over to the Kalahari. I think this is a very pregnant female zebra. Looks like she's about to burst. Still looks quite green here in the Kalahari. Muddy around the waterhole, but the grass is looking very green and lush. Wow, this female is definitely not close, well, not far away from giving birth. It looks like a big barrel. I was going to say, it's quite a surprise. She looks like she's on her own, but there is the rest of the herd. Quite a gathering of zebras. I must say, it's always a stunning sight to see so many zebras gathered together. I drove past a few large herds in the Kruger National Park in the last week, and I must say, it's always a very awe-inspiring, I don't know, sighting or visual, just to see all these zebras spread out about. And I think it also speaks volumes about the health of a wild ecosystem. If there's large herds like that still present in the area, it means something is, or it means the ecosystem is healthy. Such striking and beautiful animals as well. Those black and white stripes really do catch your attention. One would say most of the zebras are feeling very relaxed here. Everyone's got almost everyone's got their heads down and is gobbling up all the green grass while the grazing is good. Obviously from here on out the grazing quality will start to go down more and more as the grass dries out and loses some of its nutritional value. Glenn, you'd like to know zebras sometimes have twins. So the rule of thumb is zebras almost always give birth to a single foal. Twins are possible, but it is extremely rare. And I do know I've heard, but it's something I've read about as well. Twin pregnancies in zebras don't usually make it to term. It's not a very natural or normal thing, and it puts a lot of strain on the mother, and even when they're born you can imagine also the strain for resources, for nutrition, etc. So those baby zebras' chances are also quite reduced. It's not ideal, and as you know, twins are also kind of a freak of nature. It's not the normal intended process. Whereas from a survival perspective, carrying and raising one strong foal at a time is much more efficient for the survival of the species, especially in the tough African savanna environment that zebras find themselves in. It's by no means easy, especially when you're the number one menu item for lions. I think essentially one could say in the zebra world it's quality over quantity. They invest a lot more in raising one offspring than having many babies throughout the season, etc. these zebras are looking incredibly content. Heads down, munching away. But obviously, it's quite funny in that one line there, almost 1, 2, 3, looks like there's 6 zebras, but how they've almost lined up in that pattern of resting their chins on each other's backs. So quite funny also how it's in a straight line. Funny how nature can play out like that sometimes. It does look quite cute, but of course it's just more convenient to rest on each other. But it is quite funny. Teresa, you'd like to know if it's possible to tell the difference between male and female zebra. The easiest one for me always is just to look for the genitalia. Obviously it stands out quite a bit with the male zebra. I guess there's a few other noticeable things, maybe a little bit on size, etc. But for me the rock solid one is just to look for the presence of the male's tools there, and that will make your life a lot easier. Because sometimes you can also get quite a large, big looking female, and I think size wise there's not too much of a difference between the males and the females.
vollkommen neu. Davon wusste also nicht mal der eigene Geheimdienst. Also ganz klar vollständig Sicherheit. Da macht nichts anderes als Verpflichtungen aufgelegt. Aber diesmal eben nicht nur mit dem Ansatz,
I'll just quickly pop back over to Tao. With a few feed issues there. See, impalas are back. It's amazing to see how the weather is all over the show at Tao today. Now the sun is beating out, beating down on the poor impala, but very sunny compared to that misty rain that we saw with that elephant earlier. Could maybe call it the Four Seasons here at Tao today. Nice to see the impala, of course, and the various water birds. I think I see some shell ducks there, some Egyptian geese as well. Also saw a moorhen for a second. Obviously I'm very deprived from birding today. We haven't had too many close-ups of birds, but obviously spoiled with lots of other mammals today. So I can't complain too much. Tando, you had a question asking until what age do baby zebras nurse? So it's generally up to about 8 to 13 months. They don't nurse incredibly too long, and then from there on it's on to grasses for the rest of their adult lives. Also a few white-faced whistling ducks here. And I also think I see some red-billed teals at the back there. Looks like a red-billed teal to me. They've got their head in the water, but that's how it appears. Let's also keep an eye out for our sneaky resident crocodiles. I'm sure they are lurking nearby. I think that's something I can never get tired of, is watching ducks and waterfowl do their thing. Always such a peaceful thing to sit back and watch. I see we had a spoonbill quickly come into view for a second, but he has disappeared incredibly quickly. I actually thought we would have seen him by Padavika, but he is moving very rapidly. I see fish or foraging for invertebrates, that's the better word. Also see we have a coot there in the grass. The ever-present red-knobbed coot, quite a common water bird in southern Africa. Although ironically we don't get many of them in the Kruger region. It's actually considered a rarity for the park. There have been a couple that have come through now with the floods, but when I say a couple I mean one or two. It's really not a common low-felt bird. Oh, there's some springbok also that have come in at the back. For a second I thought there was some impala. So the springbok are very sneaky here at Tau. You don't often see them and they normally just slide past. Also can't recall that I've seen them really drinking here at the dam. But they are a bit more, well, they are a lot more better adapted to arid conditions compared to impala. The rule of thumb in the bush is you'll always find impala within a 2-kilometer radius or so of a water source. Whereas your springbok, they also will drink, but they are a lot better at dealing with arid conditions, considering they're very prolific in the Kalahari and other arid parts of southern Africa. I almost want to say southwestern Africa. Quite a gathering of impala. Wow, this is quite a big herd. I thought actually most of them had left, and it almost seems like a never-ending conveyor belt now with them. It must easily be about 200 impala, at the very least maybe 100, but I think there's quite a sizable amount coming through here. And the bush McDonald's, as we like to call them. Nina, you'd like to know, apart from predation and obviously or possibly drought, what problems do aquatic birds face? So, apart from predation and drought, which probably are the most serious challenges that they could face, another big and important one is wetland loss and degradation. I think a bit of a silent one that we don't really understand how wetlands are being degraded and negatively affected. So when the water is diverted for development, or it's being polluted or converted for agriculture, and all these feeding and nesting sites are starting to disappear. And obviously other birds, wetlands always remain important, but wetland bird or aquatic birds literally cannot survive without these wetlands. Pollution, of course, is a massive issue. Mining from chemicals, etc., heavy metals, and these are unseen things that we're not aware of until it's far too late. Plastics and also oil can contaminate the water, and it takes years and years of rehabilitation to try reverse the damage, and in some cases it can be irreversible. Overfishing is another one. I think that's more for your seabirds, more so than your freshwater birds, but there are large water bodies or inland water bodies where overfishing is an issue. And lastly, also the disturbance that comes from this. Repeated human activity near nesting colonies can cause birds to abandon the eggs or the chicks, or just stop using it. And obviously these nesting sites are chosen over many years and for their suitability. So yeah, it's quite a sad one, because wetlands are such crucial and rare habitats, and I think it's underappreciated what they do in the ecosystem, and we as humans are more reliant on them also than we realize. can see a sneaky moorhen also moving around on the fringes there. Looks like it's about to disappear. That would be the common moorhen, by the way. Also, once again, ironically quite rare in the Lowveld or the Kruger National Park. We're more likely to get the lesser moorhen, which is in itself a rarity for the rest of South Africa. I love the nuances and intricacies of bird watching. It's very entertaining. There's another duck there that's catching my attention ever so slightly, but I think it is a red-billed teal. Just looks a bit different. But the birds are very busy doing their thing. Obviously it's not too hot today, even though the sun is now shining with full force. I'm sure the temperatures are not soaring at the moment in Madikwe. And Waterbuck is still in the same spot from when we were here earlier. He looks quite comfortable. I'm holding fingers for one of the days when we are at Tau that the cheetahs will come visit. It must be a magical thing to witness them strolling across the open plains here. Can't complain too much though. Last weekend in the Kruger I had a sighting of 4 cheetah brothers. That was quite a profound sighting. It was very wonderful and thrilling to watch them. They were trying to hunt, but all the animals in the district had caught wind of them. Well, I think we're going to leave all the grazing antelope at Tau and pop on over to Tembe again.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
Certainly a very peaceful day here at Pan. Can't hear too many birds calling, but of course birding is never great when the wind is blowing like this. The birds go seek cover. I think maybe that's why I detest windy weather in general. It's not great for enjoying the outdoors. Rain you can sometimes still work with, but I don't know, wind always just feels a bit unpleasant. Very large elephant bull that came in there. He didn't look too big until he, gave us a view of his rear end, but you can really see how big his tusks are. Indirectly sending dust and sand to his friend to the left there from the wind. But these elephants really do have a prime spot here at Tembe. Water, food, a nice sandy spot to dust bathe in, and also copious amounts of mud. I think in elephant terms this is quite a high-end resort. can actually hear a few birds calling faintly. It's quite obviously quite challenging with the wind. It's blocking out a lot of the sounds. I did definitely hear jacana calling, but and I know we have seen them in the past here, but yeah, trying to find a jacana in a large pan like this is not an easy task. There's a few more bull elephants creeping out of the thickets there. Obviously getting a bit more thirsty, or either wanting a mud bath maybe. I think the impalas are making the most of their little island essentially. And that does connect a bit, but no, nice little island of greenery for them to graze on there. Quite happy fellows. Also actually something I'd like to see in the future. I think you have to sit with your eyes glued to this camera to catch movements of the lions, but they are often in the vicinity. But it would also be quite nice to see the lions at some point, yeah? My wish list is getting bigger and bigger. But after at least seeing or having lions once on the show, you just have to set the bar a bit higher. Elephants are definitely looking as lazy as possible on a Sunday, resting or hanging their trunks from their tusks. The bull on the right seems to be, that's what I was talking about earlier, when they put their trunks quite flat on the ground like that. It's generally when they're picking up vibrations or communicating. So I'm sure that's what's taking place. But a very docile Sunday for the elephants. Can't imagine that wind is very pleasant though. I think I would be one of the first elephants to be hiding in the thickets to get away from the wind. Right, there's a bit of action. Someone's ended the peaceful quietness there and strolled straight into the water. It seems like the other elephant brothers want to follow suit there. It's kind of always like that at the swimming pool. There's got to be one person to jump in first before everyone's willing to take a dip. I'll admit I'm generally not the first one to jump in the pool. I guess it's also kind of the same for the wildebeest migration. No one wants to be the first animal, but ironically I think the first animal doesn't often get taken by the crocodiles. It's more maybe in the first 10, but I can't say I would willingly jump into water knowing there's crocodiles waiting. Oh, I think that was just a very direct route for that bull to get to the mud actually. Decided instead of walking around, he's just going to walk through the pan and go straight to the mud pool. Hans, you'd like to know if Natal or KwaZulu-Natal is considered the tropical part of South Africa. It's certainly a region of it, so the Lowveld, in which most of the Kruger is also considered a tropical. The correct term is actually subtropical, and the same with KZN. It's a subtropical region, but essentially it's all the low-lying areas below the escarpment. So much of KwaZulu-Natal near the beach, etc., is below the escarpment, so it's quite a subtropical frost-free climate. Most of the Lowveld and Kruger, or all of the Lowveld and Kruger, is frost-free and subtropical. And then all the way east into Mozambique and along the coast there, that is also a tropical, subtropical region. As you go more north towards the equator, that is more a true tropical environment. And there's very big forests and jungles, etc. But the line between subtropical and tropical is quite slight, to be honest. I would definitely argue that that bull is very much enjoying his mud bath and taking it very slowly. Doesn't seem to be in a rush. It seems like there's a bit of a exodus or a migration in that direction now. Everyone else is, well, they appear to be going in that direction. They might change their minds, but I have a good feeling they're also going to do the same. Very busybodies. The other bull seems to have left now. Oh, he's hightailing it. Not entirely sure what he's thinking is there. Don't know if there's a bit of animosity between him and the other bull. Quite interesting, they seem to be giving that one bull quite a wide berth. I'm not entirely sure why. It can be that he's possibly in must and they're just all a bit submissive around him and don't want to pick a fight with the bull in must. The must bull is always a lot more confident and aggressive, or that happens when their testosterone is heightened. But they all seem to be giving him a bit of a wide berth. Not entirely sure why though. So you can see there's more communication going on again. Bit of chit chat around the waterhole. Now hierarchy continues. The bigger bull has now come in and secured the mud patch. It's always interesting for me how elephant bulls just have this hierarchy or between each other, just by obviously they do know each other and they're familiar with one another, but it almost comes across as a bit of an invisible hierarchy. They know who's the big guy who's in charge, and it's only really when this is challenged or that they'll get into quite serious fights. Also generally taking place when they're in must, but very interesting nonetheless. Feels like an unspoken hierarchy that doesn't take much to remind each other who's in charge. Jared, I do agree with you. It is quite mesmerizing. Certainly balancing it between talking a bit of nonsense about the elephants, but it's actually just stunning to kick back and listen to the wind, the rustling. It's quite a peaceful sound, and hearing the odd bird call. But I don't know, it's something beautiful about watching elephants around a waterhole. I think most nature for that, but it is nonetheless very therapeutic and peaceful.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
My name is Amy, and behind the camera with me is Paul. And I mean, to be able to share it with all of you. Fingers crossed, and I'll make sure I wear my lucky leopard socks as well. Full name is Maxine Gaines. Most people that know me really well call me Max. I'm a mum. I have two boys. One is 16 years old and one is 14 years old. I'm a very, very proud mama of my two boys. I've just always been passionate about leopards. I'm passionate about their conservation. I'm just passionate about everything to do with leopards. I love them.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
Or other birds fighting the reflection in your rear view mirrors. But I think at the end of the day, the vast majority of animals would probably react aggressively to the reflection. I think it's actually a very small amount that would not. Just quickly come over to Lentor with the mongooses here. There's a good chance they'll skedaddle, so we just wanted to get here as quickly as possible. Well, I'm not sure if it's wet from the waterhole here, or it's maybe been raining a bit in Lentor. Looks a bit wet in general. Fantastic to see these little banded mongooses up close. They are very entertaining animals. I have a troop that lives around my house. They're very, very cute to watch and entertaining. Can be a bit skittish, but if they become a bit habituated, they are quite fun to watch. The ones near my house have a horrible habit of tearing open the garbage, so I had to invest in a few bins that could lock away my garbage. It's quite a mess once they've gotten hold of it. And these guys are probably digging for some worms or other invertebrates, beetles or insect larvae. There are also egg thieves of note. My great-grandmother grew up in quite a rural part of southern Africa, and they adopted an orphan mongoose, and he had a very, I guess you could call it, playful habit of, if you didn't give him attention, he would sling a rock at your ankles, because that's how they often break eggs. They put a rock, or they flick a rock with their forelimbs between their legs at the egg to break it open. And this mongoose would do the same with a small pebble. He would flick it at your ankles if you weren't giving him attention. And we can quite clearly see it has rained here in Lentor. It's also good news for the area. It was looking quite dry at a point in time. I think that's always the wonder of nature. When the bush needs it most urgently, the rain does eventually appear, or it feels like that. Sometimes it can also go unanswered for some time. Quite a few mongooses in every direction. Certainly a nice way to end or get towards the end of the show, but a nice sighting towards the end. It's not something I recall seeing very often. You can see they've really dug at the side there. It almost looks like someone's getting ready to plant some vegetable seed that's been dug up so much. These are also definitely one of my favorite animals. Of course, important to note, not all mongooses are social like this. It's only really the banded mongoose and the dwarf mongoose that live in these large family groups. Many of the other mongooses are solitary and quite sneaky. It's not often that one sees them. But there's a surprising diversity in the number of mongoose species that there are. I often joke with people and say it's my spirit animal. I just love the way they operate. Well, I think it was certainly good that we hopped over here when we did. The mongooses definitely have moved on at a rapid pace. They're probably just on the other side of this little lip of the waterhole, but nonetheless we had a nice view of them. That was a nice treat seeing our mongoose friends. Come back to Kalahari's salt pan. It's also quite nice to actually, I think the last time I was here was in the, or last time we did a show here, I was in the depth of the dry season, so there was not any vegetation aside from the bushes. It's quite nice to see the area full of grass, but I think that is always something that is very striking for me in the African bush. It can look very dead and barren in the depths of winter or the dry season for us, and come spring and summer, all the grass seeds below the soil surface just come to life. It's almost tough to imagine that there is so many seeds in the soil, and it's amazing how they all germinate and they grow. Nature is perfectly balanced in what it needs to do. If you compare it to the way in which the preparation it takes to plant a vegetable seed or a flower seed in your garden, like they say, it takes a green thumb, and one has to be careful you don't overwater, underwater, all those wonderful things, and in nature it just comes right. So there's a few less zebra, but they all seem to still be very content doing the same thing that they were doing earlier, and I'm sure they'll spend most of the afternoon doing the same thing. It's always funny when they shake their heads like that. Very boisterous animals. Also see there's a few partaking in some dust bathing there. Oh, that one's looking quite comical with its front legs stretched out like that. Cannot think of a more relaxing pose. Almost as if it's lying next to the beach. But once again, from my side, thanks to everyone for tuning in today. It's been a bit of a, well, maybe a bit quiet, but still nonetheless lots of interesting things to see and enjoy. If anything, a very relaxing live at the waterhole session. And thanks again for joining. I'm sure I'll see you next time. Enjoy this afternoon's drive. I'm sure there will be quite a bit to see.